Hey, what's up, guys? Just got back from a small local tournament today. Just want to give you a small update. I basically go out almost once a week to play Modern. Um, this week I only had enough time for one tournament, and it wasn't too big. But yeah, just want to give you a small update on what I'm doing with the deck, how matches are turning out, against what decks I've been playing, you know, um, and yeah, in case you wanted some perspective on that, because it is different playing paper Magic versus playing on MTGO or something like that. It's a different thing overall. But anyways, so yeah, today was just a six-man tournament. So three rounds, and I went 2-1 today. Wasn't too bad. Pretty. The game that I did lose, I was really close, but no dice. So just gonna talk about it real quickly here. So first game I played against Mono Green Tron. So uh, it's the assemble the Tron Avengers and pump out your threats. So I only got to play one game, literally, because our one game I think took like 30 or 35 or like 40 minutes. Like we just kept going back and forth, and it was a surprisingly hard. It is a tough matchup when they are resolving some big stuff and you don't have a counter spell. You just have to fight for it. So basically, major events that happened was that yeah, I think he resolved one card on the creator, and I think let's see here. He did go I think he did cast two. He did one of the games. He Let's see how many things he cast. He casted a total of two um Warm Coral Engine, one Karn the Creator, so that's the 4 mana one, one Spirit the Ugin Dragon, the Spirit Dragon twice, and also a Ulamog, the 10 mana Ulamog. So yeah, that was pretty like rough. Early in the game, I guess he wasn't drawing any threats, but late in the game when we kept going, almost every turn he was dropping a big threat, and I just kind of had to deal with it. So like the worst Swarm Coil engine that he dropped, I think I think he already assembled the turn four or something. He drops the first um Worm Coil engine on there, and I go Kaya's Guile, sacrifice and exile it, so it doesn't split there. At least that's how I think it should have worked. Um, and I think that's what we agreed on. That, like, you sack it, you exile it, it doesn't get the trigger because it doesn't technically die. It just gets exiled. Now I'm not a Magic judge, but I believe that's how things with persist and undying and death triggers work with that. But correct me if I'm wrong there. Um, but yeah, so I go Kaya's Guile, exile his grave. Next turn he resolves Karn the Creator, grabs back the Worm Coil engine from exile, rather than going for something. Because I didn't have much on board, so I just kind of been holding up my mana. And then I think I have I think I go my turn. I go Prismatic Ending. I Prismatic Ending the the Karn. I forgot how much mana I had. I think I had at least 5 or 6 lands by now. And so yeah, I killed Karn knowing he has the Wormcoil engine. Now I don't remember the exact turn order, but I know he does do that. I don't think he plays it immediately. I think he plays something else. And then eventually he does. I think he doesn't play the Wormcoil engine. He goes straight for the Spirit Dragon, I think. So he pumps out the let me get this right. Uh, Hmm. I forget. He doesn't do something. I forget exactly. So he doesn't pump out the the Oh, I think he goes for an Ulamog instead by that time. So like he exiles some of my lands. or something like that. So it goes my turn again. Now I have like exactly 5 lands plus a Solitude in hand. So it goes pass back to his turn. He attempts to go into combat to kill the or to attack me with the Ulamog. I Solitude it, so he gains the bill in health. Have a Solitude on board. Then he drops the Dragon Spirit and pops my uses the Dragon Spirit's plus ability to kill Solitude. Okay, so it passes back to me. I drop a big Teferi. I spin the um, Spirit Dragon back to the top of his, or back to the third of his deck. He drops a Warm Coil. So this is the Warm Coil that he got back with the Karn. Now that I'm remembering it, so he hits back the Warm Coil. Go my turn. I plus it, plus the Teferi here, and then I think I damn the Warm Coil, so it does split into the 2 token. He attacks one of the tokens at Teferi, attacks one at me. I have a fatal push. I push the token to kill um the one that was attacking my Teferi. He doesn't really do anything at this point. I think he's waiting to draw the Spirit Dragon again. So he passes back to me. I plus Teferi draw. Um, I think I get another fatal push or something like that. Ironically, right? So he goes back to him. Um, and then he goes and attacks. I kill it. It passes back to me. I draw, plus the hero. I was pretty low on cards, and I was kind of flooding out too. He has like a bunch of lands, so he goes. I think I have a counter spell at this point. Drops a counter. He drops the Spirit Dragon again on me. I counter it, and from here, after that point, it was just kind of passing back and forth. I didn't have any creatures. I wasn't really doing any damage to him, and he was at like 30 something life, because he did hit me. I think he hits me or something with the Oh, I guess he did hit me once or twice with the life token, the um life link Warm Crow engine token. Sorry, kind of blinked out there. So yeah, he hits me into that. So he's like 30 something health. I do have I think at this point I have a Hall of the Storm, but I was afraid of like, tapping out for the Hall of the Storm to attack for damage. So I was just kind of, delaying the cards. So I think he tries to cast 2 more Karn the Creator, and I ended up countering those. So he never got those to resolve. So it passes back and forth a little bit more. Now, now he's running out of steam. I think he only has a couple cards left in his hand. I have a few cards in my hand, but nothing was a threat to him. It was just a bunch of removal and some counter stuff, and nothing too interesting. Like, I have prismatic endings, and what's that gonna do really, right? So I all I had was a Teferi on board. I was just upticking, and eventually, like 3 or 4 turns in, I think I finally get Teferi to 8, and I ult Teferi. Now he has, I think, 3 towers, I think 3 towers and 2 of the other ones, Karn lands. So at this point, I was like, all right, well, I'm drawing, Archmage Charm and maybe a Cryptic or something, or I think I draw the baby Teferis. At this point, it's like, well, what am I gonna do with them? Like they're not gonna really do anything. So I started just hard casting Teferi, like baby Teferis, just drawing cards just to start exiling his land. So I think I exiled 2 of the copies of the workshop, or whatever the smaller ones are, because I think he has 3 towers or whatever. So I start exiling that. I think I draw like a Snapcaster. I snap in Archmage Charm to exile some more lands. So that was basically the rest of the game. Now at this point, he's still at a healthy chunk, and he still has a lot of mana available to him, but he wasn't really able to uh, put any threats down. I mean, at this point, he could have scooped a little bit earlier, and we could have gone into like a game 2. But I think the game drags out for like another, I don't know, 5-10 minutes or something like that, because I wasn't comfortable activating this Hall of Storm Giants to attack him either. And I had like 1 Snapcaster dealing damage, and um, yeah, I have the Teferi ult going off, but he has like freaking 11 lands. It's gonna take a while to eventually get rid of all of that. So he still has a good chance of just top decking, something big like an Ugin or something like an Ulamog, and wreck me from there. But yeah, this goes back and forth. Eventually, I think it's like 5 turns. Eventually, I get rid of practically all his lands that were important, and now he finally scoops, and then we had like maybe 5 minutes left on the clock, so he just concedes the match. So yeah, that was basically it. So that was my first game. I mean, it was a difficult game. It was definitely not easy. There was just a couple of turning points where could have just went south there, but um, yeah, so I didn't even get to really side anything. If we were to go into the game inside, I would side some stuff. But right now my deck on that you see on the screen is a little different than the one I'm currently playing. Because I did buy some new cards, and I'll explain that at the end of the video. So this screen is just here to kind of entertain you while I talk. But there's this is not the exact copy of the deck that I played today. Anyway, so next game, I play against Mono Red Eldrazi. So this one there, they're pretty aggro. So game one, I think he gets like Ragavan's out. He's being pretty aggressive. I think he gets out a not Caesar, but which one's that? The Eldrazi that has like haste with trample. I forget the name of it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I just forget the name. But yeah, that thing attacked me twice or something like that and had trample. So I think I made a mistake game one. I tried to flash in a Snapcaster to block it, and I was at full health, and it has trample, and yeah, I died. That was my mistake for not reading it. Like I thought I was just gonna trump block it, but then I was like shit. He's like, oh, he has trample. I was like, oh fuck, yeah, you're right. So yeah, he takes game one. Game two, it was a little bit more back and forth. I think Makai's guy was doing some work, damming and stuff like that. So and he was kind of flooding out. So eventually, I have enough like snapcasters on board. I have solitudes and stuff like that. So I eventually beat him in the game. Game two or game three was a rough game for me. So this one, I think it was my misplay that cost me the game. So he goes first. He gets a Ragavan out. I go second. Whatever. He attacks Ragavan, gets his treasure token. Yada yada yada. Game now this my game. My turn two was where I didn't have any basics on board. So I had I think a Trinome. I had the this Trinome plus well, I guess it's my turn too. So I have a Trinome on board because I did fetch, I think, or no, I didn't fetch. I think I forget what exactly I did, but I had a fetch land. I think I did. Yeah, I did fetch for the Ragavan Trinome. Then I played the Glacial. Now I think I could fetch again, or just leave my mana to fetch again. But I just played the Glacial plus the Trinome, and I played Sanctifier as a blocker. Now, I also had Aethergus in hand, so I suspect that, okay, maybe he's playing Blood Moon, right? So he's got a Blood Moon somewhere in there, right? So, but maybe he won't. And I think either I try to block the Vagavan or let it run away and I lose that way, or just, YOLO it. I don't really have any basics in my hand right now, so I'll just play the Sanctifier to block the Ragavan because I don't think he has any way of removing the Sanctifier with any of the bolts or um, the giants, the stomping giants. So I was like, okay, that's fine. He goes. I pass turn. I play the Sanctifier. He goes and he Blood Moons me. I was like, okay, I have the Aether Gust, so if so that was the thing. Is like I had Aether Gust, so I felt safe enough to play Sanctifier, and I was gonna hope to draw into a land. And I was like, okay, maybe I can stall out with the Sanctifier, give me enough time to draw an island. In those, it's a very low chance. So it goes back and forth. He gets out Stompy Giants, gets out some more Stompy Giants just to play and just to aggro me. And yeah, eventually he just overwhelms me. I didn't draw any blues. I had a perfect answer to his board. I had like Damnation, or I had Damned, I had you know, Aether Gust, I had counter spells, I had Archmage's Charms, even Teferi, the baby Teferi. I just didn't draw my one out to the Blood Moon, which was just an island, I guess. So I guess that was my mistake, was fetching for a Trinome turn one rather than just an island, and then playing Sanctifier instead of just keeping my mana open. I think I would have been okay with taking one more hit from the Ragavan, but I was just so kind of like, oh, Ragavan's just gonna run away like it did kind of first game. So I just wanted to block the Ragavan. It was a hard choice for me, and so I decided to Sanctifier to block Ragavan and end up losing to Blood Moon because I didn't have my island to uh, stop the Blood Moon. I think if I fetch my island with my fetch land the first turn, and then okay, take the hit, and then just leave my man open. If he does play the Blood Moon, I can still at least maybe kill the Ragavan some other way, or use Dam later down the line, or stall it out, whatever. Um, then I could do something, but yeah, he just overran me on board. I think when I blocked one of the Stompy Giants, and then he Ragavans into one of my prismatic endings, and then removes my Sanctifier with my prismatic ending. 'Cause I think he got one of the treasure tokens, used that white and then like a red or something to um remove Sanctifier. So it kind of just went downhill. Game three was rough. It like just didn't go my way. Got blood mooned, and Ragavan was just peeling cards off of my deck, and he was just getting like free value off of it. So yeah, rough match there. Um, so I lose that one. It's 2-1. Um, Next game I play against Murktide. Izzet Murktide? Game one, not much happened, I guess. Yeah, it goes back and forth. Um, I eventually, I think I eventually resolve a couple of Snapcasters, I think. Because I think I drew like three prismatic ending opening hand, and I was like, all right, well, this is good, and I'll just keep it, I think he goes like Darcy and then Ragavan, and I think turn after that I drew a Fatal Push. He tries to dash in the Ragavan. I Fatal Push the Ragavan. And so yeah, game one I just had a lot of removal in my hand to deal with Darcy, to deal with the Ragavans. I eventually drew a Kai's Guile. His grave was pretty big, but he was tapped out. I think or something like that. He attacks with like a Darcy. I Kai Guiles the Darcy, and then I exile his grave. So game one, he never was able to drop a Murktide on me, and I think I just win off of that with by the nature of just resolving my big Teferi, and I think resolving some other Snapcasters. So game one goes to me. Okay, so game two. So he went first game one. Game two, I presume he's gonna go first again. So I side in Sanctifiers. I side in Rest in Peace, the Kaya's Guile, the small Kaya, and yeah, so it goes again. I think he gets another Ragavan, but I have another. I think I draw like one or two fatal push, like one fatal push and a probably one or two prismatic ending. So I answer like the Ragavan immediately. You know, you can't let the monkey run away, otherwise it will run you over eventually, right? So yeah, I think the game goes back and forth a little bit. He gains a bit of advantage. I think no, he does dash in another monkey, I think, and hits me, gets a treasure token, hits my opt, uses the treasure to use my opt to scry one. I was like, all right, well, I guess he's up in card advantage now, you know. But I eventually was able to. He goes Ragavan again. I think I counterspell it. Surprisingly, he didn't have a spell pierce or a counterspell of his own, so that resolves. I think we go back and forth. At this time, I think I'm running out of steam because I have a bunch of land in hand. But I guess kind of like turn 5 or so. I top deck I have a Kai's Guile and a Rest in Peace, right? So in my hands, so I go Rest in Peace, waiting for him to counterspell it or something. So he doesn't counterspell it, which I find interesting. I just presume maybe he just thinks he doesn't need to, or maybe he has a spell pierce in hand and he doesn't want to use it yet, or whatever. Whatever the reason is, he doesn't counter the Rest in Peace. And I think, at least from my perspective, I felt that that Rest in Peace sealed the game. Because the rest of the game, I think he does like he Darcy's and bubbles a lot. He plays a bunch of Darcy's, bubbles a lot, and he expressives into like um a regent and some other stuff, and he couldn't cast a regent because there was nothing in the grave, and he had maybe 5 lands, 5 or 6 lands. So I don't think he wanted to hard cast a regent either. So either case, we go back and forth again. I start drawing some couple of counter spells and Archmage Charms on myself. I think I do end up resolving one of the Teferi, and I think he like tries to bolts it or whatever, kills one and resolve another one. And at this point, I think the game is basically kind of set because he had more cards than me. I think he had like 5 to 4 cards, and I had like 2 to 3. So he had the card advantage, and we're about even on lands. But I think I do have a Teferi on board, and I do have Rest in Peace on board. So at this point, I felt comfortable enough to be like, okay, well, whatever threats he does place on the board, I can answer. I have less cards than him, but I can answer. I have Archmage Charm. I can steal a Ragavan. I can steal a Darcy. I don't foreseeing a Regent coming onto board anytime soon. My Teferi, I think I upticked it twice already, so he was sitting at like 6 loyalty. I think he plays a Darcy. I bounce it back, draw a card. And I think he goes expressive again. I counterspell that, and I think he at this point he scoops, shows me his hand of what he had. He had an Unholy Heat, he had a Murktide, he had a Spell Pierce, he had I think a counterspell or something like that. So he had like 4 or 5 cards there, and we talked to each other. I think he said um, he had the counterspell for well he had both the counterspell and the Spell Pierce for the Rest in Peace when I did play it, but he did opt not to counter the Rest in Peace, for he thought like he could play around it and eventually um, you know counter whatever I would play out because he had 2 counter spells, and then let like a Ragavan or Darcy go away. But I had some, I was able to remove his stuff on top of resolving. I guess he said he wanted to keep the counter spell too for a Teferi because I played Rest in Peace first with 3 open mana. So he's like, okay, he feels like a um a Teferi coming in or something like that. But I thought that was also maybe a misplayed on his end because he did have Spell Pierce and the counter spell. I don't know if he tapped out or not. I don't remember what mana he had left. Maybe he only had 2 mana, because if he had at least 3 mana open up, he could have countered both of my spells, and that would have been fine. I think he had the counter spell, but he only had 2 mana open up, so he let the spell the Rest in Peace resolve. But I didn't have a Teferi. I just had a Chaos Gao in hand, so I think I Chaos Gao's whatever, and then he never counterspelled the Chaos Gao because it was just a Darcy. I made a 1/1 token and killed the Darcy with the Chaos Gao. And so he doesn't counterspell that. And going through, I think um, we trade back and forth a little bit. But the 1/1 token was essentially, knocking his health down. I think by the time he forfeit the game, he was at 5 or 6 life left. I don't quite remember, but I too old that one. I think in part of that second game, I do cast a Kaya, the Orzhov, the Planeswalker. He does counterspell that thing, so that thing never resolved. But the rest of the time he was holding up his counterspell. Um, I guess for like a Teferi, like either the small or the big one, or maybe a Snapcaster or something like that. I cited out all my Snapcaster at this point because I was playing Rest in Peace, so I was like, YOLO, gonna cite out my Snapcasters. And yeah, I never casted anything else really. I was playing rare reactive. I just kept my mana open up half the time. Didn't really cast any threats. And I think that's what he said at the later part of the game. Like the spell pierce was just rotting his hand because every time I casted a spell, I left mana open. I never, like I cast Resident Peace with left mana open. I casted Teferi with mana open. So spell pierce was just never seeing any action anymore, and I never fully tapped out. And counterspell, I guess he waited too long to use it, and so at this point he couldn't cast a Murktide, and he was running out of threats. So he gives me the game. I think that was a pretty good game. I thought I was gonna lose because I was just flooding out too. I kept a very greedy hand. I kept I think a 5 or 4 4 land hand with very little interaction. So I think that I should have mulled again, but I was like whatever, you know. Um, let's just go with it, and maybe we'll just draw all steam. So I did end up drawing some steam all, or at least you know, uh, interaction later down the line. But that was kind of a risky keep if he did Ragavan me. Or he did do the Ragavan, but it didn't get too far before I was able to stop it. So yeah, that was some pretty good magic there. So some changes I made to the deck, as you can kind of see on the screen. I made a couple changes, and so I bought some new cards, waiting for them to come in, and we're gonna go ahead and try them out. So, in terms of the main deck, I did put back the Cryptic Command to 2 because there was times where I wanted another like counter spell, but didn't really want to play like a spell snare or play like any other counter spell. I wanted just a big 4 mana counter spell. So I put it back and took out the Toxic Deluge. Like I think a week or so before I played with Toxic Deluge, I was running into an issue where it was just too slow for me to cast, and it wasn't safe for me to cast on certain matchups. And so I guess I just kind of hated it because like when I did cast it, I wasn't seeing what I wanted to see off the top of my deck, so I ended up not playing Toxic Deluge or Toxic Memory Deluge. Sorry, Memory Deluge this week just to try out the second Cryptic, and this week it wasn't bad. I did use it, and if it does feel a little weird to counter like a 1 mana spell with Cryptic sometimes, but it did get me there today. I did like the extra counter spells when it did pop in and out here. So I think it's the Tron matchup. I actually bounced like when it was towards the very late part of the game where I had to fairy ult already. I just bounced land back to his hand and then draw a card to exile another land. So I minus him 2 lands with the Cryptic Command is what I did. The other thing about Cryptic Command is I can at least use it with Snapcaster versus with Memory Deluge. You can't really use it with the Snapcaster because if you flash back the Memory Deluge, and it's a little weird with how it works. I forget, was it Memory Deluge or something else where like you would cast it for like 0 or something like that, and it wouldn't see any trigger. Was it the Memory Deluge or something else? I forget. Or I guess Spell Queller or something like that. If you Spell Queller or Memory Deluge, and you try to cast the Deluge for free, yes, you draw 0 cards or whatever, because you paid 0 mana for it. But anyways, that's not super important. I want Snapcaster to be more useful in certain matchups, so I think Cryptic Command plus Snap is not bad. So that's why I decided to put the Cryptic back to 2. I do still side it out though. Against certain matchups, I will always take out both Cryptics if I think they're too expensive to use, especially like against the the Izzet Murktide deck. I took it out for sure. Like against Tron, I would definitely keep Cryptic in against Tron. Um, but yeah, against like a a Lurus deck or something, I would always take out Cryptic Command. It's just too slow. It won't do enough. But against Tron or maybe against a um, against Titan or something, I would keep the Cryptic in possibly. But either case, yeah, the why I did in terms of new cards, yeah, Cryptic Command 2. Side deck wise, I only made 2 small changes. Really, I took out one Aven Mind Sensor and one Kaya the Usurper because I feel like the more I played lately, at least, I feel like I already have a pretty decent matchup and understanding against graveyard decks. So probably don't need to play as many graveyard hate as I did. So down Kaya to 1 instead. And I still like her. I still love her as a um, planeswalker and as a win condition. If you can keep her on board, she can control a lot of like small pests and stuff like that. So she's pretty cool that way. And hitting the graveyard and stuff is pretty nice. So I'm still in the thought of playing at least one copy of her in the side deck. Now, Arvin Mind Sensor is still good. Um, I think the only weak point about Arvin Mind Sensor is if you have two of them on the board, they don't really like. They overlap. Their abilities overlap, so it's not like you're getting any additional value having two mind sensors. It's great to see, the mind sensors. If you're playing two copies, you have a higher chance of seeing them. But I guess the problem with that is, you either see them too late or see them too early, or you see them, whatever the math is, you know. But I decided, okay, it's mind sensor is definitely a little bit more narrow in its use. Especially I aim to use it against Tron, or not Tron, sorry, Titans and maybe some elemental decks and maybe some combo decks or something like that. So it definitely has a really really narrow use, and I think at one copy I can probably still fit it in and still use it to some effectiveness. But the one card I wanted to try out was gonna be Subtlety here. I wanted to pick up another Solitude, but haven't found one for a good price to play in the main deck. So instead, I picked up Solitude. They're like a quarter of the price of a Solitude. So, I mean, it's not too bad, right? If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. If it works, then it's great. So the idea behind Subtlety here, instead of another Solitude, is Subtlety kind of like a mind sensor. It's like I like having aggro creatures. I like becoming the aggro deck in certain matchups. And I think like, Monastery Mentor would be good. Some people in control, they use the side in Monastery Mentor and become kind of aggro when they know their opponents removed all, removal spells and stuff like that. But I wanted something that also kind of hits my bad matchups. So basically, my bad matchups would be anything with, a Force of Negation, Spell Pierce, Cavern of Souls, stuff like that. Stuff that I can't counter, or like Veil of Summers or something like that. Stuff that like basically makes my counter spells useless. I wanted something that is able to interact with stuff and kind of somewhat counter it. And so that would be like Solitude or Subtlety here and Aether Gust. So with Subtlety, I hope to be able to use it because he does have flying and he has flash, and he's 4 mana, so you can still hard cast it if you need to. I prefer hard casting my elementals over invoking them whenever I get the chance. That seems to work better. So he's another body. It's a decent body. It doesn't survive a bolt, but whatever. Um, but it does hit stuff on the stack. So it hits like if they're casting an Eldrazi maybe, or um, they are using Cavern of Souls to cast, an Omnath or something like that, I can hit it on the stack and not feel too bad. Or if they decide to invoke their own elemental, like a Fury. Like Fury is probably the one that they played most against me. Fury, Subtlety, and sometimes Endurance. I think everyone takes out Solitude against me. Like I've never seen a Solitude cast against me. Like besides the first game. Sometimes people do keep it in though. Sometimes my snapcasters have gotten solituded, but hey, I mean, if they think that is what is a threat to them, then who am I to say that they shouldn't keep solitude against me? But yeah, so usually it's like a Fury or a Subtlety that is my main weakness. Like Subtlety, if I'm playing against blue deck, like if I try to cast a Time Raveler and a Subtlety, my Time Raveler it does stink there. Um, cool thing about Subtlety is that it can't be spell pierced and it can't be force negated. So like on their turn or something, or on my turn, you know, if I need to get rid of a Teferi or I need to invoke it, it does dodge under that stuff. And it's a 3/3 body, so you can always flash it in just to smack things for 3 damage. So it's not too bad. So that's why I wanted to try out Subtlety. It's a little bit more versatile against most of my metas lately. A lot of people are playing Creatures deck, and they're all playing Caverns of Souls, so it has gotten a little annoying. Most of the time, Aether Gust does the job. Most of their creatures tend to be red or tend to be like some sort of green in it, plus the Cavern of Souls. So, you know, it works. It has worked really well. Um, but there are times where I think Aether Gust is a little too narrow sometimes. He's just red or green. So I decided to put in the subtlety and try that out instead. So that's what I'm buying. I'm gonna throw that into my side deck and try out and see how it goes. So yeah, that's it for the updates. I might go ahead and make an actual um, deck profile update in the maybe next week when I go out and play maybe another modern match and get some um, get some actual some of my actual cards in the mail and try them out in real life, and I'll let you guys know how that goes. This weekend I might go out and play Yu-Gi-Oh. For I guess the new ban list is not in effect this week. Um, but the new ban list does come in effect the week after, so I might go out and play some Yu-Gi-Oh also. So yeah. Um, but yeah, if you're not here for Yu-Gi-Oh, then don't worry about it. I'm still making Magic content because I play both games, so yeah. Anyways, I think that's it. And we'll see you guys next time.